back to Tiger's Duck Pond. I'm Hannah, and I'm going to be hosting today. Logan and I are going to be talking about Anastasia, the 1997 film, which is one of my childhood favorite movies, partly because of the music, partly because of the story, partly because Dimitri's hot. Logan just sucks and doesn't agree with me on any of those.
Basically, it starts off around the time of the Russian Revolution, and basically Tsar Nicholas and his family is in the palace throwing a big party.
Yeah.
A lot of people there dancing and whatnot, and outside there's a angry mob waiting for them, but they're just kind of there at the moment. Nothing really happens.
People are not happy with Tsar Nicholas at this point in time.
Yeah. And Anastasia is chit-chatting with her grandmother because her grandmother's about to leave for Paris.
Anastasia's about 8 years old right now and loves her grandmother very much and is sad to see her be gone.
So her grandmother gives her a floating 3D object, which is a music box.
They tried so hard and they just couldn't quite get the animation style down, so it's just a little wonky, just a little bit.
And the key is a necklace that she has, which winds it up and plays the music box. But all this is going on. We get introduced to Dimitri, which he's a servant boy in the castle, being rambunctious and doing whatever it is he's doing.
Slacking off.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much how he spends the next many years of his life, so.
And that's when we get introduced to our main villain, Rah-Rah Rasputin.
They weren't originally going to have Rasputin be the villain of the movie, but they definitely weren't going to do the Bolsheviks just because that was really dark. They kind of toyed with the idea of having maybe like a police officer who's got it out for Anya, but they couldn't find a way to really get him to follow her to Paris without going to like Pink Panther levels of crazy. So they decided to go fantastical, and they went with Rasputin and gave him some dark magic and a really strong vendetta against Tsar Nicholas and his family.
Yeah. He sells his soul, gets a little magical item, which leads into him cursing the family, and basically these little gargoyle spirit
deals.
things, come out of his little magic thing, and it breaks the lock on the gate, which allows all the angry mobs to come rushing in and basically makes everyone flee out of the castle and kills a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And basically, Rasputin finds Anastasia and chases her down.
Yeah, Dimitri managed to get her and her grandmother out of the palace through the servants' stairwells, and they almost make it out before Rasputin finds them and gives chase.
But it didn't work because he falls into the ice and
dies.
Kills himself, basically.
Yeah, he spends the next long time in purgatory.
And Anastasia and her grandmother get away, but when they're on the train, Anastasia didn't quite make it. She falls off.
Head trauma!
And loses her memory.
Yeah, so they did play around with the timeline some to make this movie work. They wanted a younger teenage princess main character, so they did set this during the Russian Revolution. Anastasia was about 17. So that would have put her at 27 during the majority of the film. So they just decided to take 10 years out of that. So Anastasia is 8 at the beginning, and Anya spends the majority of the film as an 18-year-old young woman. Also, Rasputin was already dead by the time of the Russian Revolution. He had been shot in the head, and then his body was put into a hole in the ice into a frozen river to make sure that he was dead. So they just decided to not do that.
Yeah. Rah-Rah Rasputin did not live.
Yeah. No, but he makes for a pretty fun villain, so who cares?
Yeah. He's voiced by Christopher Lloyd, which makes it even better.
We love Christopher Lloyd. We pick up 10 years later.
So we pick up 10 years later. And everyone is creepily singing about Anastasia in the streets, because no one knows what happened to her, so.
They're all thinking that she might be alive, and hey, there's a pretty big reward out for anyone who can bring her home to her grandmother in Paris.
Yeah.
There actually was an impersonator who was thought to be named Anna Anderson, and it was found out that she was actually a Polish woman named Franziska Schwarzkowska. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And she almost got away with it for about 5 years before people were finally like, okay, no, you're not Anastasia. And then when they finally found the bodies, they were able to do DNA testing and prove that she was not Anastasia, which is good, because if it had actually been her, that would have sucked.
Yeah, it would have. They're singing the song. Dmitri and Vlad are running around doing their thing, buying up clothing and stuff from the palace that used to be in the palace. And
coming up with ideas.
Yeah, they're scheming on how to get an Anastasia to sell to the grandmother for the reward.
See, here's my concern with that plan. You get a girl, you train her to be Anastasia, you take her to the grandmother, and then you leave her there. You grab the reward money and run, and this lady's just stuck being Anastasia for the rest of that woman's life.
Well, that's their problem.
Fair enough, they did agree to it.
But yeah, they're doing their thing, and then it cuts to Anastasia, who's now, what, Anna? Anya. And she gets kicked out of the orphanage.
Because she's 18 now, and thus no longer a child.
Yeah. So she gets kicked out. She decides to head towards the city when she meets up with a dog. And
a dog wants her to go to Paris.
Yeah. So she keeps him because the dog won't stop following her.
Going back to the orphanage scene, actually Carrie Fisher helped do rewrites for that because the dialogue was giving them some trouble. And if there's one thing Carrie Fisher can't stand, actually there's many things that Carrie Fisher can't stand, but one of them was bad dialogue.
Yeah. Especially in Star Wars.
Well,
a lot of people had problems with the dialogue in Star Wars, but besides that, they're going to the city, and
she gets there at the same time that Vlad and Dmitri are finishing up their auditions, which were not successful whatsoever. They did not find anyone close to passing as Anastasia.
Oh, that's right. She ends up at the train station, and she doesn't have a passport
or any papers at all.
Yeah. And then there's an old woman there that tells her that Dmitri can help her out.
But
so she
didn't hear it from her.
Didn't hear it from her. So she goes and seeks him out at the old palace because that's where they've been hiding out. And she's there before Dmitri and Vlad get back. So
trips out a little on LSD for a very fun song. Once Upon a December was written by, I can't remember names today, Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flattery during a heat wave. So they had a lot of fun with all their winter imagery while they were sweating through their suits. Yeah, that song there's a lot going on during that song.
It's like the Dumbo scene where they're all...
The pink elephants?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Except way less creepy.
She's doing her thing, and the bat is there, which is Rasputin's minion.
Yeah.
And he has the little magical...
reliquary.
Yeah.
And he overhears Dmitri and Vlad meeting and Anya and deciding to make her their Anastasia. The reliquary comes back to life, so to speak. And Bartok initially flips out because that's not supposed to happen. And then gets dragged to the underworld.
Where they meet back up with Rasputin.
Who's falling apart!
Literally.
And then we have a very fun song, In the Dark of the Night. And while Christopher Lloyd does do the speaking voice for Rasputin, Jim Cummings did the singing voice for this song. It's such a good song.
It's a good song.
It is a good song. That song is actually the reason why Tyler and Logan wanted to watch Anastasia at all. I don't know how they found the song, but they did.
I didn't even know of the song before this started.
Oh, well, Tyler definitely did because he made me watch it as though I didn't know what it was. And then I revealed that I have the movie. And now here we are, without Tyler.
Doing the review.
Regardless.
It cuts back to Anastasia, Dmitri, and Vlad talking about their scheme, getting everything going. And
Anya does not realize that this is a con man situation. She really thinks these are just guys who think she might be Anastasia. And hey, we're already heading out to the city. We're already heading out to Paris. Why don't you just come with us and meet the Grand Duchess? And surely she'll know if you're Anastasia. This definitely isn't a con to get an old lady's money. that we are definitely using you for without your knowledge.
She just wants to get out, so
She just wants
she's
to
like,
Paris.
screw it, whatever.
Yeah, okay, I'll give it a shot.
So, after all that happens, they escape on they get on a train.
Mm-hmm.
They're going towards Paris, and basically they had forged some
Documents.
Yeah, so that way they could get in and out of the country. But because it's the USSR now, and they changed the text from black to red on the
Blue to
passports.
red.
Blue to red?
Blue.
Oh, well, either way, it's still red.
And they did not do it in red. They did it in blue. So they are very quickly going to get discovered as stowaways.
So they're like, oh, crap. And they run towards the baggage car. And this is when Rasputin's little
Gremlins
ghouls
come to do murder attempt number 1.
Yeah. Technically, it's number 2 if you think about it.
Fair enough. Murder attempt number 2.
And they detach the passenger cars from the main engine.
So it's just Anya and the guys, the coal car, and the engine flying off because
And
the
the
Gremlins
baggage
are
car.
also and the baggage car. That's right. And because the Gremlins are really speeding that train up. And when they try to disconnect their car from the engine,
They had melted the hitch.
they fuse the hitch together, so that's not coming apart. And then they blow up a bridge.
Yeah. Because they're like, oh, we can just coast on down. We'll be fine. Like, no, they blew up the bridge. So,
If you're not going to stop, you're not going to separate, and you are going to go into a ravine. So sorry.
so
Rest in
they
peace.
jump out of the train.
They do manage to separate the cars via dynamite that Anya found conveniently lying around. It's not revealed how she lit the dynamite, but she did manage to light it and pass it to Dimitri to blow up the hitch. Role model for young girls everywhere, guys.
Just
when in
blow
doubt,
everything up.
explode. Destroy your problems. Dynamite is always the answer. And then they managed to get a chain and a hook and slow down the car so they don't have to jump out at breakneck speeds. Because that would be dangerous. Not that none of this is dangerous.
There's snow around, so I mean,
yeah, but also, like, woods. No one wants to jump out of a train and smack into a tree. That would be pretty hilarious, though.
true.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get out of the train and they start walking.
Start walking.
Walking and walking and
They
walking.
eventually get to a bus, and they take a bus to Germany?
Is
They
it
take a
true?
bus somewhere.
Yeah.
And then from the bus, they get on and they have a whole song the entire time, teaching Anya to be Anastasia. And the bus finally stops, and they get onto a boat. And at some point during the song, Dimitri managed to sneak away and buy a dress for Anya so that she could feel pretty
Yeah.
and not be wearing rags anymore because that was bad. But they managed to get on the boat. They have a good time. Anya learns how to dance. She and Dimitri are definitely falling in love. Neither of them is going to do anything about it because where would be the fun in having that crisis resolved?
Yeah.
And then we get to murder attempt number 3.
3. Yeah, 3.
You're the one. You're the one who said my numbers were wrong before.
2 or 3.
Murder
Depending
attempt
on how you
number
want to look
3.
at it.
Depending on how you want to look at it.
So they're all asleep, and basically Anastasia starts dream walking because of the magic from
gremlins
Rasputin.
are haunting her sleep.
Yeah. So she thinks she's in this magical world where everything's
LSD part 2.
a lot of LSD in this movie. So
Oh my
she's
God,
walking
stop,
around the
I'm so
boat
sorry.
thinking it's a grassy meadow with these kids and stuff. She follows them.
Yeah, she's following a little boy that is meant to be her little Anastasia's little brother, Alexei.
And she ends up on the edge of the boat,
About to jump into the ocean.
but the dog wakes Dimitri up and he rushes out and saves her before.
He has so many problems getting through this boat. Anya's just like waltzing along, completely out of it, and Dimitri's slamming into walls left and right. The ship's being absolutely
pretty bad
tossed
storm.
by a storm. There's no crew in sight. Like, the gremlins must have scared them off first, because they are gone.
Or killed them.
Well, you know what? The boat managed to
You
land,
never know.
so someone knew what they were doing on there.
They're all inside.
Hiding from the rain.
So yeah, he saves her. They end up.
She punches him in the face again.
Yeah.
Important.
And they all end up at their destination.
In Paris!
The
Yay,
worst place in the
Paris.
world besides Detroit.
Oh my gosh. Oh my. The entire time we were watching this bit, every time they said Paris,
Wait, who was in Paris?
every time, Logan and Tyler would not shut up.
Well, you never answered who was in Paris.
You're watching the movie with me! You can clearly tell who was in Paris! Anyway, they make it to Paris, and 1920s Paris is when Paris is starting to become the Paris of culture, when all of the artists were flocking to Paris and really giving it that that vibe, I guess.
That very Paris vibe that you would expect.
The vibe that no longer exists. If you go to Paris now, you will get stabbed. Do
a
not
shit
go to
show.
Paris.
It's
Do
hell
not
on
go
earth.
to Paris. You will get stabbed. But in the 1920s, Paris was actually pretty cool. They had all the poets and the painters and
Baguettes.
all the cabaret shows and everything.
Longer baguettes.
I hate you with a passion.
Well,
Yay, Paris.
Do you prefer shorter baguettes or longer baguettes?
She and Dmitri attempts to introduce her to the Empress, the Dowager Empress. It does not go well. Anya smacks him. He does some mild kidnapping. Or old lady napping.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Empress napping.
A person is stolen. And he forces them to talk to each other. And then they realize that they actually are who they thought they were. Oh, I do have one more fact. After that happens, they go back to the Empress's house. And there's a bit, the Empress is like, oh, I have this drawing from when you were a kid. And Anya says, oh, yeah, I remember this. My sister said that it looked like a pig riding a donkey. That's a quote. She wrote a letter to her father complaining about her sister saying that. They took that line from the letter.
They take Anastasia or
Anya.
and they go to get her verified as the actual Anastasia.
By Sophie, the cousin to the Dowager Empress, the grandmother.
Who totally has a thing for Vlad, which is
Oh,
the
yeah.
best character in the whole movie.
Well, it's a mutual thing. They're both very sappily, grossly in love with each other.
They have a thing for each other.
None of us wanted to know about it, and it's too late now.
So she gets verified as Anastasia
Dmitri realizes that she actually for real is Anastasia.
because she says something that she remembers.
She remembers Dmitri getting her and her grandmother out through the servants' door.
Yeah.
And he's like, crap, this one's for real.
And she's like, well, maybe not. I can't quite remember. But
Sophie also, I guess, doesn't know because she just kind of says, all right, cool, and moves on with her life.
yeah. But after all that, they go for a walk in town.
They go out for a night in Paris, where we have, I'm pretty sure that's the last song in the movie.
I think so.
Yeah. Paris is the key to her heart. I don't know if that's the correct song name, but I don't remember anymore. But speaking of the songs, the songwriters for the movie were Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flattery, who actually came back and wrote, embellished and wrote new songs for the Broadway musical that came out in like 2017, which is absolutely stunning. If you haven't heard it, definitely listen. If you haven't seen it, I don't actually know if you can still see it, but if it comes back, go see it because I love the musical. It's so good. And it does go on the more historical fiction side with sticking with the Bolsheviks, but you can't have Rasputin in them all.
That's true.
Paris, Dmitri realizes that he's falling hopelessly in love with Anastasia, and thus he can never have her. And he's very sad.
Because he's just a little peasant boy.
He's just a little peasant boy. He's just a little con man.
So, after that, they end up going to the Russian ballet, which is in Paris. And they're watching it, getting ready to go see the Grand Duchess. So that way, her and Anastasia can finally meet up and be together again. But when Dmitri goes in and talks to her, she's like, no, I know you. You're that con man. Get out of here.
From Russia. Get out of here.
And Anastasia hears the whole thing.
And realizes that she's been played.
So she gives them a big old bitch slap and walks off.
She has been smacking Dmitri around a lot during this movie. I can't say that he didn't deserve it, but also that's like the third good slap she's given him during this film.
Well, one of them was on accident during
Two
the
of
boat
them were
scene.
on accident. The one on the train, she was asleep, and when she woke up, she smacked him in the face. She was not
That's
apologetic about it. And at the very end, she smacks him again, but it's because she's flailing about and doesn't realize that he's behind her.
Yeah.
That one was, but this one was absolutely intentional. She 100% hauled back and wailed on him.
So, in a desperate attempt, after the ballet is over,
The last bid to get them to meet each other.
The Duchess is getting into her car, and before the driver can get in, Dimitri rushes in and just drives off.
Just some light kidnapping.
Yeah.
Just some light kidnapping.
And he's like, "You've got to listen to me. You gotta, hear me out this time."
The Empress just starts, "Stop this car! Stop this car!" Like, that's gonna make him do anything.
Dimitri's like, no. And just keeps on. So he takes them to where Anastasia is and
makes them talk to each other.
Yeah.
And Anya walks past the Empress and the Empress has a peppermint hand lotion that triggers a scent memory for Anastasia of being a little girl and spilling that bottle on the carpet, which then triggers actual memories, and Anya remembers that she really is Anastasia, and with the help of the music box is able to prove it to her grandmother.
Yep.
Have a big happy family reunion. They go back to the grandmother's manor, I guess. She definitely didn't stay in a house.
House or something. The big house.
And cool fact, the grandmother is going through like old things that she's saved over the years from her family, and there is a picture in that Anastasia drew for her grandmother, and Anya looks at it and says, "I remember this. My older sister Olga said that it looked like a pig riding a donkey. It made me so mad." That line is taken word for word out of a letter that the real Anastasia sent to her father, complaining about her sister insulting one of her drawings. So I don't think that the picture is entirely accurate, but the line is. That happened. That is. So just remember, guys, when you're writing in your diaries, or I don't know, we don't really send letters anymore, but things last, and when they eventually make a movie about your life, they will find it.
They will dig up your old
and
Discord post.
They will say that on camera. So remember that.
Find out what a terrible person that you really are.
Oh, we made this movie about your brother, and we found that thing that you said about him because he wrote about it in his diary. He emailed it to his friend. And now it's preserved for everyone ever, and everyone knows that you were a terrible person.
Yep.
It's okay. If they know you, they probably already know that you're a terrible person. Sorry, Logan. Your secret's out.
What can I say?
You're a terrible person.
Honestly.
Yeah.
All that happens, and she becomes the official Anastasia.
The last Grand Duchess of Russia.
So they throw this big old party welcoming her back. She's got, all dressed up and all that.
Yes. The dress she's wearing is actually based off of and very similar to the dress that Anastasia wore in the 1950s Anastasia film. Of course, it is animated, so they did take a couple liberties, but it's pretty similar.
Yeah. Her grandmother walks off into the party, and she's still behind the curtain when the dog runs by. And
those dumb dogs every time.
She chases after him
into a hedge maze, which kind of comes to life and traps her.
Yeah.
And also spreads halfway across town and leads her to a bridge that she was not previously near.
Well, maybe it just felt like it was really long. But
who knows? She ends up on a bridge.
Yeah. Some magic happens, magic shenanigans, and she ends up on the bridge where Rara Rasputin ends up being there.
He was lying in wait.
He's like, well, my minions can't do it, so screw it. I'm just going to do it myself.
He literally comes. Right.
He comes from hell just to kill her.
I'm pretty sure it was purgatory. I'm pretty sure he came from purgatory.
Purgatory hell.
Look, we're just lucky that none of his limbs fell off at this point in time.
Yeah, that would have been real awkward.
I don't think Anya would have handled that with quite as much grace as Bartok did.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Bartok has decided that he's finally had enough, and he ditches. He's done.
But Dimitri comes into the scene, and
he's decided that he is in love with Anastasia, and you know what? might as well shoot your shot. And then he gets there, and it's not exactly a good time for romancing. So instead, he starts trying to beat up an old man. He fails.
To be fair, he's trying to kill Anastasia.
True. Dimitri does fail and is stuck in his own fight with a giant stone Pegasus that used to be a statue. He's kind of busy with that mess.
And the dog is fighting one of those little gargoyle spirit things.
Very cute, very cute. Except the gargoyle's ugly, but the dog's cute.
Yeah. So they're fighting each other.
Anastasia almost dies.
Yeah. She manages to get the
reliquary.
Yeah, and smashes it with her foot. Steps on it a couple times, and
yeah. The Pegasus explodes, and the rubble knocks Dimitri out. And Anastasia kind of thinks he's dead. He's not. And Rasputin does the thing from Tangled, where he turns into absolute dust, and his ashes are blown away by the wind.
Yeah.
I'd say rest in peace, but I don't think he deserves it. So.
No. He's in hell, probably.
He finally made it to hell after being in purgatory for forever. Dimitri wakes up. He's not dead. Anya does smack him in the face again. So if his nose wasn't broken before,
it is now.
It is now. And they end up sending her fancy crown back to her grandmother and eloping to go run wild and jobless across wherever. I don't know if they stayed in Paris forever or left.
But they're on a boat
They just kind of get on a boat.
And ride off into the distance.
Go off wherever the boat goes. I suppose if they ever run out of money, they can just call Grandma and she'll come bail them out. She is an empress.
It's true.
Eventually she'll probably die and leave them all her money. And then they'll have to go settle down. But in the meantime...
they're going to have some fun.
Yeah. And that's the 1997 Anastasia.
That's everything.
That's pretty much that whole movie. Highly recommend. I know we might not have quite sold it, and we definitely spoiled the ending, but highly recommend.
It was a good movie.
I enjoyed it a lot. It's got a lot of goofy little one-liners.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. Don't trust Logan's opinion on it because Logan's a butthead.
Hey, I said it. Yeah, I said it was a good movie, so don't trust me.
That's true. Well, at the beginning you were dissing it. Unless that was at the beginning of a different recording before we realized that we had to stop and try again because we were not getting
one of the 5 other times we had to do it.
Yeah, we may have had some trouble getting this actually done.
Anyways.
Well, I think that's all for now. Again.
In the next video.
If we ever do another movie review. This might have scared us off of them for good.
Yeah. So, thank you everyone for watching.
Yeah,
subscribe to the channel, and we will see y'all later.
Thanks for listening to us jabber away.
Bye.
Bye.